My sister smashed my 6-year-old daughter's bike with a hammer. While my mother blamed me, I shared the proof and cut them off. My sister smashed my 6-year-old daughter's new bike with a hammer right in front of her. That should be a lesson for her, she remarked. You shouldn't have bought it for her, my mother said. I did not yell, I simply smiled and said one sentence, and their faces became pale. Now, let me pause for a while because if I don't, you'll believe I'm making this up. But no, this actually happened. Imagine this. A bright Saturday afternoon. One of those rare moments when the laundry is done, the dishwasher isn't beeping, and the world seems nearly bearable. My daughter Chloe is leaping around, grinning from ear to ear, almost shining with delight. She had been eager to show off the bike that is sitting in our driveway. Shiny, bright and flawless. Who are we having over? My mother and sister Brittany. Because of course, why ruin an otherwise lovely Saturday with family politics? When Chloe sees them, she virtually cries, "Have you seen the new bike?" Her voice is so full of pleasure that I can feel it rising up. She grabs their hands and pulls them outdoors, as if she were going to reveal the crown jewels. And that's when I noticed it. Brittany's expression changed, her smile clenched and her jaw hardened. You know the expression someone makes when they've eaten something nasty but don't want to confess it? That was her. I recognized the look. I had grown up with it. Still, I was unprepared for what happened next. Brittany said nothing at first. She simply stood there staring at the bike, as if it had personally offended her. Chloe was still beaming, pointing out the minor features she adored, like the streamers on the handles and the way the paint reflected light. Then Brittany spoke, her voice cool and almost serene. Let me show you what I think about this. And before I could figure out what she meant, she turned on her heel, strode into my house, and emerged with a hammer. A hammer? Now, let me tell you that in situations like this, you don't believe what you're witnessing. Your brain is scrambling. You think, surely she's not going to. She wouldn't. Oh, but she would. She lowered the hammer onto the bike's frame with a single forceful swing. The sound. It sounded like metal screaming. Chloe gave a small gasp. The way her hands rose to cover her mouth. God, I'll never forget this. Another swing. A crunch. The paint splintered. The wheel bent. I remained there transfixed, watching, my body immobile. But my mind racing like if every alarm in the world had gone off at once. Do you know what Brittany said? She did not shout. She did not rant. She simply stared my 6-year-old daughter, my baby, square in the eyes and said, that should be a lesson for her. A lesson. As if telling a child that joy can be destroyed with 3 hammers is a valuable lesson. Chloe did not cry. Not right away. She only stared at her broken treasure. Her lips trembled and her small shoulders shook. And me? I felt a cold wave surge over me. Not wrath, not yet. Just shock. That's when my mother decided to weigh in. Of course you'd expect a grandmother to pick up her granddaughter, console her and possibly chastise her other daughter for going full demolition mode in the driveway, but no. Instead, my mother shook her head, folded her arms, and muttered, "You shouldn't have bought it for her." As if it were my fault. I nearly laughed. I mean, it's crazy to stand there while my sister turns a 6-year-old's joy into scrap metal, and I'm somehow the problem. I did not yell, I did not cry. I didn't fling myself at Brittany or take the hammer from her. No. I stood there, smiling. Because quiet may be the sharpest knife you have. Brittany dropped the hammer on the pavement with a clang. She appeared satisfied. My mother nodded, as if Brittany had just made a valid point. And me? I only smiled and spoke a single sentence. And whatever they expected me to do, I'll plead and defend myself. Oh no. What I stated turned their faces pallid. Now you're probably itching to know what that one statement was. And I will tell you, but not now. Because the reality is, that moment in the driveway, with a bike broken into a useless heap, my sister looking smug and my mother feeling righteous, didn't happen out of nowhere. It was years in the making. Brittany was my younger sister by 2 years, and she was born screaming. And honestly, I don't believe she ever quit. The distinction is that when most children scream, their parents teach them boundaries. When Brittany shouted, my parents taught me. Every one of her tantrums ended up being my fault. She did not obtain the toy she sought. Why didn't you give her yours, Lauren? She lost a game. Why couldn't you simply let her win? You understand how sensitive she is. She broke something. Why did you get her so agitated that she hurled it? By the age of 10, I could run a crash course in walking on eggshells. My mother's favorite line was, "Don't upset your sister," which was hilarious because Brittany could get angry by almost anything. I recall one incident vividly. I saved my allowance to purchase her a small jewelry. Cheap, but cute. I thought I was being a decent older sister. She opened it, found it wasn't pink, but blue, screamed like I had given her a dead rat, and snapped the chain in half. My mother did not scold her. She looked at me and said, "You know, she wanted pink. Why would you get blue?" That was my childhood in a nutshell. Brittany's shattered stuff. I was blamed. Fast forward a few decades, and guess what? Certain things never change. I studied law, worked long nights, and eventually established a solid career. It paid off. I make more than the rest of my family and can afford to live comfortably. As a result, I frequently assisted them financially, covering basics and ensuring that bills were paid. But there's an issue with aiding individuals who already dislike you. No matter how much you give, it is never enough. I would assist with groceries, power, or medication. But when I said no to extras, I became stingy, greedy, and arrogant. In their view, if I wasn't funding every wish, I was the bad guy. So, when I say the bike incident did not happen out of nowhere, do you see what I mean? It began one afternoon when my daughter Chloe and my niece Madison, Brittany's young kid of roughly the same age as Chloe, were playing outside. Madison had her bike, which she had been riding for a while, except that day, it failed her. Something snapped or slipped. I didn't see what happened, but I heard the wail. Chloe, bless her, attempted to help. She's 6, so her concept of fixing things is just poking them and saying, "I can do it." But the truth is that the bike was already broken. Of course, the moment Brittany saw it, she pointed at my daughter and yelled, "She broke it." It looked like Chloe had smashed it with a sledgehammer. My mother immediately backed her up. "Lauren, you need to accept responsibility. Chloe needs to realize that her acts have repercussions." I did not argue. I just said we'd bring the bike home so Ethan, my husband, could look at it, because sometimes you pick your battles and sometimes you wait for proof. That evening, Ethan rolled the bike into his garage. He works well with tools, is patient and methodical. He turned it over and checked the chain, frame and pedals. After 10 minutes, he glanced up at me and said, "This isn't Chloe. This is a defect. See this? It could have failed on anyone." Worse yet, he was correct. It was risky. If Madison had been traveling downhill or crossing a roadway when it broke, well, let's just say I don't want to continue that sentence. So, no, my daughter had not damaged the bike. The bicycle had broken itself. And that's when my rage set in. I had fought my way through law school, so I knew just what phrases to say when someone attempted to avoid accountability. I took up the phone and called the manufacturer. I described the situation in detail. "A child's bike has been broken owing to a flaw. It is unsafe and inappropriate." I might have also used terms like liability and injury. It's amazing how quickly people start listening when you throw those in. By the next morning I had an email in my inbox. They weren't simply replacing the bike. See, this is where being persistent and, perhaps frightening, pays off. I pressed. I contended that a basic replacement was insufficient. Madison deserved better, especially considering the risk she had been put in. So they agreed to upgrade to the type Madison had been begging for, the dream bike she'd been raving about non-stop. And when that email arrived, I smiled because there would finally be justice. Madison would have the bike she desired, and Chloe's name would be cleansed. The whole woman broke it crap would crumble the instant everyone realized what had actually transpired. I chose to keep things quiet. I wanted it to be a surprise. Imagine it. Madison's face lit up as she noticed the bike of her dreams waiting for her. Brittany realizes her daughter has something amazing thanks to me. Not despite me. For a brief period I considered whether this could repair things. But as I discovered in the driveway, some individuals do not want things healed. They want them broken. Brittany imagined that I had purchased that bike for my child when her child did not have one. Chloe had broken the previous one inside her skull. And now I had gone and purchased the very model her daughter had been fantasizing about so Chloe could ride in front of her. Humiliation disguised as benevolence. Cruelty with sparkly streamers. That was the lie she told herself as she lifted the hammer. I let the silence last until even the birds seemed uneasy. The metal ticked gently as it settled. My mother's lips formed a thin line of approval, as if discipline had just been administered and dessert would follow. I didn't provide them dessert. "I'm going to say this once," I informed them, my tone so low that it astonished me. "That bike wasn't for Chloe." 2 beats. Their pupils darted around looking for the trick. It was for Madison. Brittany blinked first. No, it wasn't. It came out quickly, like a sneeze. It was, I answered. I fought the manufacturer to replace the defective one and got the upgrade, the one she's been talking about for months. My mother clicked her tongue like she would before a lecture. Don't be dramatic, Lauren. I gazed down at the broken frame. I'm not the one who brought a hammer to a children's bike. Brittany's face became blotchy. You're lying. You always lie when you get caught. About what? Emails, paperwork, the badge-wearing words liability and child safety. I smiled. Would you like me to pull them up or would you prefer I read them aloud in the front yard? That landed. I watched as it registered. In her account, she describes the dawning, the recoil, and the sudden impulse to reorganize the furnishings. Her attention shifted from the bike to Chloe, then back to me. You expect me to believe you'd do something like that for my kid? No, I replied. I expect you to regret what you just did. Chloe's hand touched the back of my leg. Small, warm and steady. I covered it with my. I did not look down. I did not want her to see my eyes yet. Not like this. My mother went forward, as if mere proximity might change reality. Lauren, there's no need to humiliate your sister. You can fix this. Claim insurance. Say it was a misunderstanding. And the part where a grown woman destroyed a 6-year-old's joy on purpose, I blurted out. Do we classify that under misunderstanding or teachable moment? Brittany folded her arms so tightly that her knuckles became white. It was just a moment, she sniffed. People have moments. Kitchen crying is a moment, I explained. This was a demolition project. Watch your tone, my mother warned, as if tone had been the weapon here. I let the silence fall again. It had weight now. You may put a glass on it. Leave, I replied. Brittany laughed with a piercing, unbelieving bark. Leave what? My house, I replied. And after that? My life. They stared at me as if I had declared that I was moving to Mars. My mother's hand soared upward, fingers gripping pearls that were not present. Don't be ridiculous. We're family. That word, I responded, doesn't imply what you use it to mean. Brittany's eyes narrowed. You don't mean it. I kept my voice even. I do. She took a step towards Chloe. I shifted instinctively, one hand gently easing my daughter behind me. Ethan had remained quiet up until now. You've experienced the stillness that certain guys have, which might feel like a room remembering its shape. He stepped onto the porch, wiped his palms on his jeans, and paused near me. Time to go. He whispered gently to each of them. Not furious or haughty. Just final. Ethan, my mother tried. Talk sense into your wife. I am, he answered, and there it was, a door closing without smashing. Brittany stared past us down the corridor, as if the correct words could still be hanging on a coat hook. You can't do this, she replied. We're your family. We help each other. You brought a hammer to my child's joy. I told you. Help has exited the chat. For a brief moment, her countenance changed. I could not tell whether it was fear or comprehension. She rounded on me again, frantic. We can fix it. We can just say it was an accident. No one needs to know. Chloe knows, I said. I know. You know. I bent my head toward the street. And the neighbors with windows probably also know. My mother sought a courtroom compromise. We'll talk tomorrow when you've calmed down. I nearly laughed. I'm calm, I said. That's what's scaring you. Ethan opened the gate. Please leave, I replied, and this time, I did not include the rest. Some phrases become sharper when they conclude early. They paused. You could feel the push-pull on their faces, the old habit of bulldozing, the new knowledge that bulldozers require keys, and I wasn't handing them over any longer. Brittany went first, shoulders tense and steps rapid. My mother followed, halting on the threshold as if she would turn around and rewrite the entire scene with a single scolding. I simply gazed at her. She stepped outside. Ethan closed the door. Not a slam, a seal, or stillness. It was not empty. It had a shape and a temperature in it. I could hear Chloe taking little breaths. She could feel the tremor diminishing in her hand. We stood there for a count of 10, long enough for my heartbeat to descend off the roof. Chloe finally said, Mom, with a papery voice, did I do something wrong? I crouched so that we were eye to eye. No, I replied. You did nothing wrong. Her chin wobbled. Auntie was mad. She was, I answered, but people can be mad and still be wrong. She nodded as if she understood, which hurt me a little more than the bike. "Do we still get ice cream?" she inquired, as if we had forfeited dessert by upsetting the parents. "Definitely," I said. "2 scoops, 3 if you tell Dad which ones." A ghostly smile. "Chocolate and sprinkles." "Scientifically optimal choice," Ethan murmured from behind her, hoping to lighten the mood. However, the air in that house had changed. It wasn't as hefty as it had been throughout my life. It was bright and clean, almost too clear. I could feel the hush settling in. But, for once, it did not feel weak. It seemed like a limit. We stepped inside, and as Ethan distracted Chloe with sprinkles and ice cream, I took out my phone. My hands did not shake. Not anymore. I opened each account that I had been paying into. Utilities, streaming, and food. I removed my cards one by one. No announcement, no explanation, and no speech. Simply clicks. Done. It was not theatrical. It wasn't vengeance. It was about survival. And it didn't take long because, as I was rinsing the bowls and Chloe was crunching sprinkles between her teeth, my phone lit up. This time it was more than just messages. It was a call. Mom, Brittany, and Mom again. I did not pick up, but I read the preview of one text, which was sufficient. "We just received a notice. Your card has been removed from the account." "Why would you do that?" "Add it back." They knew. Another arrived seconds later. "What are you playing at?" "This is petty. Put the card back now." I stared at the computer, seeing the urgency in their words. It's amazing how quickly people go from righteous to begging when the faucet turns off. Ethan looked over. "You don't have to answer." "I know." I slid the phone face down on the counter, but the buzzing continued. Call after call, text after text, as if they could pound their way back into my life with sheer determination. One finally came through with so much venom that I had to read it twice. "You're going to regret this. Family is family. You can't simply cut us out." That's when I smiled, realizing for the first time that they were mistaken. I could. And I did. By the next morning, the calls had subsided, but the texts had not. And when the buzzing finally stopped, I should have realized it wasn't serenity. It was planned. Because if my family can do one thing, it is to rewrite history. The first sign was a ping from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in 6 months. "Hey, I apologize about the drama. I hope you and Chloe are fine." I frowned. Drama. I considered shattering a child's bike with a hammer to be a felony, not drama. Then came the screenshots. Apparently my sister and mother had taken their campaign online, or at least into our extended family group chat, which still contained the digital remnants of a reunion photo from 2015. They turned the entire situation into a tragedy in which they were the victims, and I was the villain. They claimed Chloe broke Madison's bike. I declined to help. And then, this is my favorite part, I cut them off financially for spite. No mention of the hammer, no mention of the driveway, no mention of my mother standing there nodding like a judge passing sentence while my sister ruined a 6-year-old's joy. The story was so bizarre that it should have come with a funhouse mirror. I wanted to disregard it. I actually did. But when I watched relatives respond with little thumbs up emojis, "Oh no, poor Madison," and "That's so cruel of Lauren," something in me snapped. Because, here's the deal. People can mistake me for a cold person. People sometimes believe I'm difficult. But is my daughter being portrayed as a spoiled child who was rewarded for wrecking someone else's bike? Number that I will not let slide. So I did not. I opened the security app. You know those cameras you put on your porch because you are concerned about package thieves? It turns out that they also capture family meltdowns. And there it was, crystal clear. Brittany walks out with the hammer. Chloe gave a small gasp. Metal bends. Paint cracking. My mother's voice in the background, blaming me. The entire terrible symphony. I grabbed the clip, cut nothing, and reposted it on the family chat. There's no commentary or diatribe, just the video, and one sentence. For the record, that bicycle was intended for Madison. Brittany destroyed it herself. This is why Madison does not have a bike anymore. Then I put my phone down. I did not have to wait long. The conversation exploded like a grenade in a container. Aunts gasped in all capitals. Cousins typing WTF, as if they were auditioning for a new keyboard shortcut. People who had quietly believed the revised narrative were forced to confront the truth. And the reality was wearing sweatpants and wielding a hammer. I should have felt justified. Instead, I felt exhausted. Because here's the deal. People do not appreciate it when you tell them the truth. They simply choose the loudest side. My mother called within an hour. I almost didn't respond. but a part of me wanted to know what explanation she had come up with. She did not disappoint. "Yes, maybe your sister overreacted," she said. "But how could you post that video? You've ruined her reputation." I held back a laugh. "She ruined herself, Mom. I just pressed play." "You don't humiliate your family," she shouted. "Funny," I said. "That's exactly what she did to a 6-year-old with a hammer." The stillness on the line was piercing enough to draw blood, then she hung up. However, the consequences was not over because the video did not simply make its way into our family discussion. It spread. Friends of friends and neighbors. Someone even shared it on Facebook, with the message, "Who does this?" Brittany's husband seemed to have seen it. Now I won't pretend we ever got along. He constantly acted as if he were auditioning for the most exhausted guy in America. Even he couldn't look at that footage and shrug. He called me, which is something he never does. "Is it real?" he inquired. His voice was flat, but I could detect something beneath it. "Yes," I answered. "It's real." He breathed slowly and deeply, as if he were releasing air from an overinflated balloon. "Thank you," he said before hanging up. The next thing I knew, he had filed for divorce and custody of Madison. And, curiously enough, that was the first time I felt relieved since it meant someone else had finally noticed it. Finally, I responded, "This is not okay." The calls from Brittany and my mother continued, but their tone had changed. Less righteous and more desperate. "You didn't have to post it. You're tearing this family apart. Think of your niece." As if I hadn't been thinking about her the entire time. I stopped responding. Instead, I sat on the edge of Chloe's bed that night, watching her sleep, and allowed myself to experience something I hadn't felt in a long time. Nor fury, nor tiredness, but insight. Because this is something they have never understood. Family is not a free pass. You can't smash, lie and demand while expecting total loyalty. Family is meant to represent protection, safety, and affection. And if it doesn't, perhaps family is just another word that people use to avoid facing repercussions. Finally, I drew the line. This may go too extreme for some folks. For some, the distance may not be sufficient. What are your thoughts? Tell me in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to